Dan and Corey here, welcoming you into Libservative.
The great fundamental issue now before our people. We, the people, cannot turn back.
Yeah, welcome in to another rousing rendition of Libservative, intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. What a shit show we have in front of us. Bell the Bodysnatcher on the ones and twos. He is always is Corey Walsh.
He's Dan Griffin.
And we are going to have some fun making fun of some Republicans tonight.
That's a fact, yeah.
You know what's funny is like anybody that's just tuning into our show for the first time after I just said that probably just assumes we're some like lefty liberal show. So maybe I should watch what I say early on in the episode.
Yeah, you just blew it. You just alienated half the audience, Dan.
For anybody thinking that, we spend a lot of time shitting on Democrats, but it is Republican primary season, so we have to give them their just desserts. So we're obviously going to recap that this evening in a way that hopefully you haven't heard anywhere else. We have Canadian leadership apparently just openly love Nazis now. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. The two presidential frontrunners, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, recently, actually, Trump was just yesterday and Biden was what, Monday, Tuesday? I can't remember. Both
Wednesday
in our great state of Michigan to lie to the UAW and grandstand for all of you. And we have a Democratic senator from New Jersey getting busted for some alleged corruption. I use alleged a little bit more softly this time because this is the second time he's been indicted, and I believe the third time that he's been investigated for very similar.
I was just gonna say, yeah, third time investigated, second time indicted
for very similar alleged crimes. I've got a little bit of a conspiracy theory about this one that I hope that you will all enjoy. Again, we should have the tinfoil hats on for this one, but we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. Before we get to anything, Corey, tell the people all of the ways in which they can associate with our stupid little show.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com, and you can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter, Libservative Pod, and our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast. You can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today.
Thank you for that, Corey.
The song is the soundtrack to my life.
It's definitely the soundtrack to this show. That is for sure.
What's up, Bright Nez?
Where do we want to start? You want to just jump right into the debates? I just feel like that's the thing we have to. That's the thing we have to cover first. I don't know why. I hate it. I think we have to because I think our audience is smart enough to know that like watching these stupid things is destroying their brain cells, and so they count on people like us, Corey, to take care of that for them. We are sacrificing our neurons to save yours.
Yeah, I had it was like similar to carbon monoxide poisoning with like the lack of neurons firing in my brain that I fell asleep during it. So I had to listen to it again today.
Well, that's so interesting. All three of us were watching it and none of us finished it. None of us got all the way to the end. You guys fell asleep. My head started to hurt.
Yeah, me and Belle fell asleep next to each other on the couch.
Cuddling?
Spooning. What do you got to say for yourself, Belle?
Forking.
Oh, that's a euphemism. Yeah. So basically, if I had to sum this debate up into like a few sentences, I would say that it was a less of a debate and more of a shouting match. We can thank Trump for that. it made, you know what's funny about that whole portion of it, about how they're like shouting at each other now? It's not really an Oxford style debate. Well, it never really was, but it's nowhere close to a debate with any type of decorum. When Trump was first doing that, it was funny. And like,
because he's a funny guy.
Well, and then with him not on this, I don't know if it's because he's not on the stage or it's getting old. It's probably a little both.
He's not on the stage, and if he keeps not showing up, we're gonna, instead of calling him Donald Trump, we're gonna call him Donald Duck.
Thank you, Christie. Oh my God. Yeah,
I know you're watching, Donald.
There is some pretty awful yet hilarious one-liners from more than just a couple of the candidates last night. It was basically an argument over, it seemed like, fentanyl and immigration for like 90%
high on fentanyl, Dan.
For 90% of the, I love when you get Republicans arguing about immigration, because they all talk about the issues from illegal immigration. They're like, oh, they're bringing fentanyl over and killing your family. They're the borders are wide open, which is just that's just a patently false statement. Do we have more people trying to come illegally because of Biden's policies? Like, sure, like that's a thing, but like, we do still have a border that is like we're trying to protect. So it's like,
we're doing our best.
It's this idea that like the border patrol is just down near Juarez going, hey, everybody come on over. Like, that's the way it's going down
each other's assholes.
Yeah. So there's that one. And then the other one is like, sanctuary cities are the problem. Like, we're going to shut down sanctuary cities. And like, I'm sitting there going, like, as president, how the fuck are you going to do that?
You know what's funny is all the mayors of those sanctuary cities are probably some of the very few people that agree. Because they're like, yeah, we're trying to get rid of them too.
Well, they're a horrible idea. There's no question about that. I'm not like defending sanctuary cities, but it's like,
yeah,
it shouldn't be a thing. It should be a talking point for the president of the United States.
Could we go on a little tangent and talk about that for a second?
What, sanctuary cities? Let's do it.
Yeah, that like before like it became a thing where like all these like border states started shipping migrants to the sanctuary cities, how they were all on their little podiums and soapboxes. Going, we would never kick out any illegal immigrants here. And it's like, oh yeah, that's easy for you to say. You're 2,000 miles from the border. And now they're getting bused there and they're all like, oh, we got to do something about these immigrants.
No, instead you'll kick property owners out of their properties so that you can house these people, because it's still illegal to give them jobs where they could actually make money and contribute to society and maybe be able to afford housing on their own.
Yeah, just outside of your I bet you 99% of them would be like, yeah, I'll work.
Yeah, I'll take a job. Yeah,
please. It's what I came here for.
Well, that's just it. So speaking of that, that was actually kind of where I was going next. So it was a nice segue. Like, the solutions that these Republicans give, they're just retreads from like 2004. It's like, we're just going to round them up and send them back. Vivek said that. I mean, a couple of the people on stuff, we're just going to round them up and send them back.
Yeah. Christie said they need to be tracked like FedEx packages.
Yeah. We're going to bring back Remain in Mexico. I think Nikki Haley said that. I think Mike Pence said that, or something to that effect. We're going to finish Trump's wall.
And it's so goddamn frustrating, right? And this is why it's frustrating. It's frustrating because
before you go, let me just add this one caveat. They always say, but we love legal immigration. They always say that. They always have to add that in. Now go ahead.
It's just so frustrating to me because like the government loves to put band-aids on things and not fix problems. Like, you look at the college, like the college debacle we find ourselves in, the healthcare industry we find ourselves in. And the only ways to solve the border crisis from Republicans is the same exact thing as just putting band-aids on the border, instead of actually trying to like look at the issue and what's causing it, and how our war on drugs is completely devastating these places because it's making a product so valuable that Americans are buying it at exorbitant prices. And in return, that's just completely destabilizing all these Latin American countries. So that everyone goes, well, I have nowhere else to go. So they go to the place that has a little bit more of a stable economy, stable government, and things like that. So they all scoot up here. When instead of just toppling governments in South America and Latin America, and instead of basically financing all of these cartels. We just keep letting them fuck everything up, and then they come here, and then our only option, apparently, because that's all the Republicans talk about, is just send them back.
Yeah, exactly. So they could just come back to the border again. It's like that's all Remain in Mexico was. It was just a Band-Aid where you have all these migrants from
like, we're talking trillions of dollars made with the drug war, and now it's almost as lucrative for them to just extort people for money to get them to come here, because the cartels are smarter than our fucking big ass bureaucratic system we got here that doesn't know its ass from a hole in the ground.
Well, it's something that we've talked about before on this show, Corey, about like the not being able to understand. This is like a human problem. I'm not just saying this is even just a governmental problem, but like the inability to understand second, third, fourth, and fifth order consequences of your actions. You know, when you try to topple a government, which, by the way, generally these Central American and South American governments that we're starting coups in, they're usually left-wing governments because we want the right-wing government in place, and that includes Democrats, which is why when people try to say that Democrats are leftists, they're not. They're fucking right-wingers.
Look at what Obama and Clinton did to Haiti when Haiti just wanted to increase their minimum wage so that people making all of our pants could make a decent living.
Right.
They went and were like, nah, don't do that. You can't give people more money.
Yeah.
Like, oh, instead of like letting them ask for more money to make it less of an incentive to offshore like denim factories here.
And it's like, if leftism is so bad, and like, look, I get, like, I'm not a leftist myself, but I have sympathies for certain like leftist values. I think I always will, because that shit's complicated. But like, if leftism is so bad and these left-wing governments are so bad, and it always fails, right? That's what you always get from like the PragerUs of the world. It's like,
why does it take the American government to help them fail?
Right. Well, why don't we just let them fail on their own? Like, why do we have to like topple governments and completely take away any sense of stability that these people have that cause them to migrate to our border and come into our country in the first place? Like, those are the second, third, and fourth order consequences that our government is so bad at understanding. And like, you would at least have a defense. Like, say you're the Biden administration now, and none of these coups had ever taken place over the past 30 years. You still have governments failing, these left-wing governments failing, which is certainly possible. Most leftist governments have failed before. They would, what is it? Left-hand path, Satanism. You support Satan? I guess I do. Satan's all right.
I knew it. I fucking knew it.
So
Corey exit stream.
You just let these governments topple on their own. At least if you're the Biden administration now, you would never have to answer those questions. They don't have to answer those questions anyway, but those questions wouldn't even be being asked. Anyway,
all I heard was, you're a dirty Satanist.
I guess I'm a dirty Satanist. Yeah,
I didn't mean to go off on that tangent. I just wanted to talk about that, how it's just funny to me. How the government, like when you hear the like Reagan's little 9 words, the 9 scariest words or whatever, it's I'm from the government, I'm here to help. It's probably like the most weighted thing that he said that has any sort of truth to it.
Well, and that's the scary thing about that's what actually is scary about socialism and communism, and it's real. Like that's usually what the next step is like outright communism. When you have the government going, we're here to help you.
Let me just help you out. Hey, let me just stop. Let me just stop your strike you want to take, railroads, and then the government's here to help and get 60% of you some health care and safety precautions that you want. And we're going to call it a win.
Yeah, the immigration debate was an absolute disaster. And honestly, I think everything that...
And they all agreed. Like, they all were shouting over each other of how they just need to secure the border and send everyone back. And then they were all telling each other that they're wrong, but then all saying the same thing.
But every Republican on stage is a really good person.
Yeah.
Vivek was showing a lot of love the second time because of the fact that the first time they all hated him. He said prick.
Well, they still spent like the whole time just completely attacking him. And
And he's like, can't we just be friends? And they're like, dude, you all said we were bought and paid for last time. And it's like, well, it's still true.
The thing is, it's working because I don't know that he demonstrated it because he's a pretty good orator. He speaks really well. But like, I got this sense that Vivek was a little bit more flustered last night. Like his take on immigration and the 14th Amendment was one of the dumbest things I heard any of the candidates say last night. So I actually, because I don't expect everybody to just memorize the 14th Amendment. The only part that matters as far as like the illegal immigration context is Section 1. There's 5 sections of the 14th Amendment. But I'm just going to read it for you real quick. Section 1 of the 14th Amendment states, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. That's the only time citizens ever is mentioned within this section. And it goes on to say, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law or deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection under the law. So equal protection under the law applies to any human being residing within your jurisdiction at any given time. It says nothing about citizens other than the statement of privileges and immunities.
Like context is important when it comes to our amendments and things like that. And that was written straight in regards to slavery.
Yes. And Tim Scott made sure to bring that up.
Which was like the only good thing he said all night.
The reason this applies to the idiocy of what Vivek said was that he essentially said that because they're illegal immigrants, any child born of an illegal immigrant doesn't have protection under the 14th Amendment because since they're illegal, they're not under the jurisdiction of wherever they are. And Corey, you brought up a great point in the pre-show.
Yeah, I'll say it again.
Go ahead.
Like, so here's the thing is like, he's talking like out of one side of their mouth, they say that children being born here by illegal immigrants are protected because they're not under the jurisdiction of the law. But then out of the other side of their mouth, they also call them illegal immigrants, implying that they're here illegally because they're under the jurisdiction of the law. If that sounded dumb, it was kind of implied because that's kind of what his thought process is here.
Yeah, exactly. How can they be illegal immigrants if they're not under?
Yeah, they would just be what are those, like those free staters, those people that say they're sovereign citizens.
Yeah, sovereign citizens.
Yeah, they're just sovereign citizens. What? They aren't under the jurisdiction. Like
that's exactly what they would be. And that's honestly, like I've said for a long time, that Section 1 of the 14th Amendment is like one of my favorite things about our Constitution, which was the bringing about of equal protection under the law. Anybody within state jurisdiction has equal protection under the law. So
yeah, even if you're not a citizen,
right, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, say you're here visiting and something happens and you pull some dumb shit, you're getting the same protection as anyone else would because that's what a free country does.
Well, and not to mention, to make Vivek's point about the Section 1 of the 14th Amendment not applying to children of illegal immigrants. Okay, if these illegal immigrants are not subject to our jurisdictions, so if an illegal immigrant goes and like robs a store and the store calls the cops and they get there, they find out they're an illegal immigrant and they go, "Oh, sorry, can't arrest them. They're not under
our jurisdiction."
Oh my God,
Vivek, dude, no, I don't need a spam caller as president.
That's fair. What's funny is like, of the people on that stage, this is such a low bar, but if I had to choose any of them, honestly, this is going to sound silly, but I'd probably choose Doug Burgum. But in the same way that I would have chosen John Kasich in 2016, but like, we'll just like Doug Burgum aside, anybody that's like polling over 4%.
My biggest takeaway from Doug Burgum was the guy barely got to talk at all and barely got to say anything at all. And then everyone the whole night is all yelling at each other and talking over each other. And then there was a point where he goes, "I had to respond to this." Like the first time he spoke out of turn.
Every
one of the moderators goes, "Hey, listen, if you keep this up, we're going to have to cut your mic off."
Doug, Doug, take a Klonopin and sit down, bro. Like he was like like waving his hands. Hello, I'm here.
Like, hey, over here. And then he finally started talking. They're like, hey, shut up or we'll shut you up.
Well, what's funny is like he's the only guy on that stage that like, even though he seems kind of lost sometimes, he's like the only guy on that stage that like ever makes like any sort of salient point.
He didn't pull out his pocket constitution this time.
He didn't, but like he interrupted to interject about subsidies for electric vehicles, giving money to China, how like, you know, EVs aren't as fucking clean as we all think they are. Like that was like a salient point.
EVs are just NIMBY. EVs
then,
are just the perfect example of not in my backyard.
And then, you know, he brought up the whole point about, you know, stepping on Second Amendment rights isn't going to fix crime. Like that's a 100% true. We know that's true. Mm-hmm. Like he's the only one all night that like made points that mattered, but like he did it at times where maybe they weren't being heard. And then, you know, he kind of lost me when he like went the fucking neocon route of like, hey, we have to defend Ukraine and Taiwan. And then I'm like, oh, Doug, you had me there for a minute, brother.
Imagine if we were putting those resources into shoring up relationships with countries that are actually growing and are going to be a player in the economic or geopolitical strategic playing field, like India or South Korea or Vietnam.
Oh, speaking of that, when it comes to like the BRICS thing, did you hear what Marco Rubio said a couple weeks ago?
Mm-mm.
He goes, BRICS is going to be a problem because it's going to interrupt our ability to sanction people.
Oh no.
Like,
you mean we overplayed our hand with Russia and it didn't do shit and now they're more solidified and making more money than ever?
You mean BRICS is going to prevent us from like invoking economic terrorism? Wow, that's a bummer.
Oh, shucks.
Fucking Marco Rubio. Oh, man.
You think Marco Rubio also stashes his money under beds and in the pockets of coats with his name on him and then will claim it's a Cuban thing?
Yeah, I think they all do that.
That's what, yeah. According to Menendez.
You want to move on to that? We can move on to that.
No. We still have plenty to talk about.
Still plenty to yeah, we haven't really who haven't we shit on yet? Oh, Nikki Haley.
Oh, well, I got a whole list. So Mike Pence
didn't say anything all night.
Didn't answer any questions he was asked. He just
my notes for Mike Pence. Tangent. My notes that I took for Mike Pence, it's blank. I didn't write anything down.
I just have all I have for Mike Pence is he's a right to work bitch. Because he was
I did write down one thing. He said that the way to curb mass shootings is to expand the death penalty.
Oh yeah.
Jesus Christ.
No, I think right now one of the major curves to the mass shootings is what Michigan actually did with the that little prick
Crumbly, whatever. The Oxford shooter.
Yeah, how they're going hard after the parents.
Held the parents responsible. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, 100%. You know, like it's especially when it's the parents' fucking guns. And like most of the time, or the parents are helping them get the guns and different things like that. Like there's gotta be a responsibility for this type of shit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't see how that can't be considered some form of manslaughter. You know, if you're a crazy fucking teenager, you know, if you buy them a gun, which is what they did for Ethan Crumley, the Oxford shooter, they bought him that gun. For him, it was his gun. They said, well, we keep it locked up. It's like, well, obviously you can still get to it. But yeah, like if a crazy
I mean, as a responsible gun owner, if that gun's registered in my name, that gun is my responsibility.
100%. As it should be.
All of my guns. Unfortunately, that if anyone's listening, the guns that I lost in a boating accident, I mean, the boat sank and I lost all my guns.
Gotta go find them. They're registered to you, Corey.
Yeah, good luck to you, ATF. Go find them.
Somebody could magnet fish those things out and kill somebody.
Ramaswamy, I have he tried to be way friendlier.
Every point he gained in the first debate, he lost in the second one, in my view.
I just thought it was hilarious that he was trying to be more friendly. Like you could tell that he pays attention to like what the focus groups and stuff say.
Mm-hmm.
Because he tried to be way friendlier and stuff this time, and the others were like, "Nah, fuck you."
He was so unhinged on immigration, both with that 14th Amendment comment, but like, using resources to round up kids born of. I don't know that he was trying to say that like this, or if it came out clunky, but this is kind of how I heard it. Like, We're going to round all these kids that were born of illegal immigrants up and send them back just like we would anybody else. It's like, yeah, because the fucking 5-year-old that was born in Texas to an illegal immigrant is the one sneaking fentanyl over the border, you fucking idiot. Like, what? Seriously? And then like, one of the things that I can't stand about folks like Vivek who come over here, well, his parents came over here and like he gets to pursue the American dream, and then they're fucking ladder pullers, dude. They want to pull the ladder up behind them. Like, I have an issue with that.
He's
a ladder puller.
Yeah, Vivek, he really dropped the ball on this one.
The last thing about Vivek that I have, and I don't know if you have anything else, but he wanted to go like full Chinese Communist Party and take away TikTok from anyone under the age of 16.
Don't you love some authoritarianism?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, he's great. Yeah. I don't love TikTok. I probably wouldn't want my kid using it, but again, that's my choice. It's my responsibility to keep the TikTok away from the kid. It's not your responsibility as president to keep TikTok off of my kid's phone.
Yeah. Stop telling me I'm inept at being an individual in a free country
and a parent,
and that the government has to tell me what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, isn't that the Republicans? Weren't they bitching about that stuff for a while, saying that? Like in this, that's another thing too. It's like in the same breath, they also say the parents need to know with their kids, and it's up to the parents to decide these different things when it comes to trans rights.
Right.
But when it comes to any sort of social media platform that America can't just infiltrate, like Twitter or Facebook, then no, we got to get rid of it.
It's making me need to pour a bourbon.
Attaboy, what bourbon?
Not an ad. I got some Wild Turkey Rare Breed here. Nice. Not an ad. Wild Turkey sponsors this show.
Imperial Apple from Blake's. And then I also have Burgum. One of the things he did say, this was kind of pissing me off about like the UAW thing, with the strikes going on and stuff. They all blamed it on Bidenomics. They all blamed them wanting to strike because of Biden, and it was like the sole reason for it was Biden.
Well, they struck in 2019 when Trump was still president, or at least GM did.
And and it's never mind the 50 years of worker decline as production has skyrocketed and wages have stayed stagnant. Never mind that. Never mind that this has been going on since like 1972 when production has skyrocketed and wages are equivalent to, like, adjusted for inflation, are basically at the same rate, while CEOs and stuff, their wages have gone up like 400% or something like that.
Right.
It's bullshit. I hate that shit. I hate the idea of just blaming just all of these people striking and stuff. It's Biden's fault.
It is partially Biden's fault, right? I mean,
because he's actually encouraging it a little bit.
Yeah, well, no, and not just that, but it's like the Biden administration, and like every administration pulls this bullshit, right? Like they give you these fake numbers, like they give you the unemployment number, which doesn't account for anybody who's not actively trying to get into the workforce. So it's like, oh my God, unemployment's at 3%, but it's not factoring anybody who's not looking for work. So that number is always bullshit. And then when they do the inflation numbers, it's always a compounding number, right? So if last year inflation was at 7%, they say, well, it's down 3%. Well, no, it's not. It's just up 3% from the original 5% that you had before, or it's down 3% from the original 5% that you had before. Like they take these numbers and they turn them into bullshit. So it's like when you have. And Trump did it too. I mean, every presidential administration does this to make themselves look better. And so like, yeah, you can partially blame some of this on Biden for not, while I don't think that all of this inflation is 100% his fault, because it's not, because Trump artificially kept the interest rates low, which is always an issue. But yeah, his administration hasn't done enough to curb this inflation. So yeah, you can say that this is, Biden's partially to blame for this strike.
So I had a bit of a little thought turning in my head, like, oh, look out, right? Like we keep attacking all of these issues where like the American dream is becoming more and more out of reach for the average American every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're all talking about just raising wages, right? Just got to raise them wages. And the thought process I had was the idea that, like, I don't know if it's a wage issue as much as it is like a supply issue for like different assets and stuff. Because even if you're making 15, 16 bucks an hour, working 40, 50 hours a week. Everyone's pretty much got the nice flat screen TV. They got the console, they got their books, they got a phone, they got all the commodities, they got all the consumerism aspect of capitalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's got Amazon Prime, everyone's got this type of shit. But still, they can't afford a house. They can't afford a decent car. They can't afford, any sort of other assets of actually trying to save money, invest money, and things like this, because all these things that are important in building wealth are unattainable. But when it comes to this, the basic like threads you want to wear, the shoes, everyone can get all this stuff super cheap. That not necessarily raising wages will fix these problems, but like figuring out how to get rid of the bottleneck on the supply of the assets and bringing that down is the problem.
Well, just ask RFK Jr. You got to blame BlackRock.
That's very true.
For buying up all the single family homes at cash price at cash value.
BlackRock, Vanguard. No, you're absolutely right. And that's the thing is like they're artificially.
But then you have people that go, this is a sign of capitalism failing. It's not.
No,
that's not capitalism.
No,
this is cronyism. The capitalism is fine.
I would even argue that everyone striking through collective bargaining is a sign of capitalism, and it's a response to capitalism.
Yes, because work and labor is a form of payment. I mean, it is a free market thing. You trade your labor and your time and your energy for money. Like the employer is getting something out of this too, and that's why. When people talk about the minimum wage, can't remember if it was Hoppe or one of the great libertarian thinkers. I'm sure one of our libertarian folks will correct me on this, but they stated as if minimum wage is not like liberals treat minimum wage like it's a floor, right? Like we're lifting the floor so that everybody can get raised up, but that's not really what it is. Minimum wage is a hurdle that you're trying to get over. And when you keep raising it, well, now that hurdle is much higher, because if you have a zero skilled worker that comes into the workforce that is not worth $15 an hour, well, how do they get over that hurdle? Because now the employer won't hire them because they're not worth that $15 an hour.
Right.
That makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
If minimum wage is zero, well, now workers it's easier for businesses to hire these workers because now they can be trained up and they don't have as high of a hurdle to jump over. Like the moral reasoning for minimum wage to me is understandable. I get like what your goal is when you raise the minimum wage. It just never works out that way.
Yeah, I'm at the point where either it's like, I also think about ideas like if you created almost like a minimum wage tiered system to where it's like if you are a minor, you can get paid a little bit less if you're part-time. If it's like jobs like that, like or a small business, like those tiers should be different. But if you get to the point where you're in the economy and you're working 40 hours a week, I think that you should be able to do whatever you're doing for 40 hours a week. You should be able to afford, a house, or at least shelter, food, and
right. But you also see how
without having to rely on the government for anything.
If you're paying a minimum wage worker $15 an hour, and maybe that worker's only worth $8 or $9 an hour, you're now devaluing the dollar.
Right. And then on that same thing of what's going to happen is if you're raising minimum wage that high,
inflation,
the company is going to only hire one person, not two.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And the less skilled worker has no way to compete. Because like a worker with zero skills can only compete against another worker with zero skills, and it's probably going to be his or her drive or willingness to learn that's going to get that person that job.
Oh, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, brother.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, that was a little bit of a minimum wage tangent. My libertarian came out in me there for a second. I apologize.
Christie, he called out Trump's $7 trillion, and so did DeSantis, which I think is important because during all of COVID, there was, I think, a roughly $10 trillion thrown into the economy. And that's also another reason for inflation.
Yeah, like Trump's just as responsible for the start of this inflation as Biden is for not curbing it enough.
Absolutely.
They're both responsible.
Absolutely.
Like I don't.
You
There's
remember
no way you can look at it and where that's not the case.
there was backstops into the like he spent trillions of dollars in backstops on the stock market. There was the money he sent out, the $2,000 of stimulus checks, all sorts of stuff. The PPPs, that got forgiven. The what else was there? There was a couple things, but
there was the 2017 tax cuts to corporations. Like there was a whole plethora of things where he should have focused on something more substantial for the American people, like he promised in his campaign. And these are the things that his sycophants always miss.
Oh, and then so I'm just running down my list right now. DeSantis made a gaffe about Confucius. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. What happened there?
Oh,
I might have missed that part.
He was talking about the CCP, and then he said something like, "We don't need Confucius or the Chinese or something like that." But like, he attacked Confucius. He attacked the fucking religion. Like, I'm gonna see if I can find it.
You talking about Taoism?
Yeah.
He attacked the Taoists. Confucius was a Taoist, right? I don't know. I'm not like an expert on world religions. I know a very little bit on world religions. Yeah, I'll let you find it because the only other thing I have to say about DeSantis is like, it's funny because he probably said that as I was writing down my note on DeSantis because it was just like all he did was fearmonger about China and about how China's going to pass us in the next decade when almost any model suggests that, yes, China may continue to grow for a little while, but they're ultimately going to economically get too big for their britches, which is why they're going around the world waging economic war in the way that we wage military war. Like we go in and we take shit by force. China goes in and fucking says, "Hey, we'll build this stuff for you, but you're going to owe us all this money." And that's how they hold other foreign governments hostage forever.
It was more than just a gaffe, apparently. I'm looking at this article from the collegefix.com from June 2021, and Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis recently signed 2 bills aimed at stopping the influence of the Chinese Communist Party and other foreign adversaries on college campuses. The bills passed unanimously also aim to stop foreign espionage against companies. He prohibited Confucius institutes from Florida. So he prohibited a religion.
Oh yeah, baby, using the power of the state to stomp on the First Amendment. Love that.
Yeah, we've been calling DeSantis out on that now though for what, 2 years, a year at least.
Oh, conservatives don't do that though. They're all about the free speech now, Corey. They don't step on your First Amendment.
Only when it suits their fancy.
Yeah, imagine that. Yeah, very, very. It's almost like Republicans and Democrats are exactly the same.
And then another one was anytime he was asked about foreign policy, like with Ukraine and all this stuff, and this was something I saw a lot of them do. They kept pivoting back to domestic policy regarding our border.
Oh yeah,
like, oh yeah, thanks for making me feel confident in your foreign policy because all you know is domestic policy.
Yeah, and then DeSantis talking about like, oh, America is in decay, like this complete fucking doomerism. DeSantis honestly does it the worst because like I'll give people like Ramaswamy a little bit of credit because as much as he was awful last night and he was absolutely awful, like he's the only person on that stage, maybe Doug Burgum, but he didn't speak enough. But he's the only person on that stage that's like optimistic. He's like, no, we can definitely fix this stuff. We can definitely fix this stuff. And I can at least appreciate that aspect of what Ramaswamy has to say. I mean, I think at the end of the day, he's just another Soros turd, probably. I don't know. But, DeSantis with the doomerism, America's in decay, and we need to back the police. Like, I mean, like that is why his polling numbers have fallen so far. Because first of all, he speaks like he just got out of like an ice bath. It's like the way
he just looks like he smelled a fart constantly. Like he doesn't even know how to make a good face.
That's
like when he
Carlson
smiles.
too.
Yeah, but
Tucker
DeSantis as well.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't speak well, and then he just vomits out neoconservative talking points. That's all he does the entire time. Yeah, and then all you had was Christie, who basically just spent the entire time attacking Trump. I have a little bit of respect for Chris Christie that I didn't have before the first debate and when he announced, because honestly, I think Chris Christie's just having fun out there trying to shit on Trump. Like, I think it's like the only reason he's there. He
doesn't have a
enjoying the
shot in hell.
spotlight.
Yep.
Yeah. And then my favorite thing Christie said was, how are we going to stop crime? Tell me if you've heard this one before, Corey. How are we going to stop crime? We're going to reinstitute law and order. It's like, what the nobody even knows what that means. They just
no one knows what it means.
They clap and they cheer.
It's just good. Provocative. Nobody knows what it means. It's provocative.
Oh, we missed Nikki Haley.
Oh,
is that because we're sexist?
A win for Russia is a win for China.
Yeah.
I have written down.
I like all the wars. that's basically Nikki Haley.
Yeah, any war that I don't have to physically be involved in is a win for me.
And then, like, she was like, okay, you were speaking to the American people who have trouble, and this isn't like an indictment on anybody, because like I'm no smarter than any of the people that were watching this either. But like, she's like talking about the healthcare system and like rambling for like 3 sentences on tort law, as if anybody knows as if anybody who didn't go to law school knows what the fuck tort law even is. Let me guess. You have to look it up right now because you don't know what it is.
I had to look it up yesterday. Tort law is just about civil cases.
Yeah, it's like
essentially
just rambling about tort law. And then the healthcare industry is this was actually a good point she made. The healthcare industry is the only industry to absorb more money and become less productive over the last 20 some odd years. And she's right about that. But then they tried to blame it all on Obamacare. And it's like, yeah, Obamacare didn't help, but it ain't the reason the healthcare system became less productive. But I'll give her credit on this. She said, school choice, good. She likes school choice. So we support Nikki Haley on that, or at least I do. And then she got really unhinged about TikTok. When Ramaswamy was talking about TikTok, she clutched her pearls so hard when she started talking about, oh, you want to allow the American people to get on TikTok because they shit. And Ramaswamy had a really good response to this. Because they asked him about him getting on TikTok because he recently got on TikTok, and he's basically like, look, I'm a younger candidate and we need to reach younger voters and we need to meet them where they are, which I actually thought was a good answer. Honestly, like if younger people are on TikTok and you need their votes, maybe sacrifice your data to the CCP to make it happen. I don't know. Anyway,
fucking mess.
42 minutes. 42 minutes on perhaps the collapse of all debates
No, it was so bad.
That's the worst debate I've ever seen.
I don't know, man.
It was worse than Trump Biden. It was worse than Trump Biden.
That first bump Trump Biden. Well, I guess it was easier to handle, for the moderators with Trump and Biden because there was only 2 of them. There wasn't 8 people all trying to yell over each other. But both of them are just like, what the fuck is going on?
Oh, they're all terrible. The debates are just they're worthless. That's why I said, like, folks, don't watch it. Just listen to our podcast. We'll give you the points. We'll lose neurons while we're doing it, but we'll get there for you. So Canada, Corey, is going straight fascist, eh? Like it's actually like they're not even trying to deny it anymore.
Is that what we're going for? Sure. Yeah, Nazis are cool again. Trudeau probably said.
So for anybody who hasn't heard this story yet, Canadian House Commons Speaker Anthony Rota invited a 98-year-old from the 14th Waffen SS Division, Yaroslav Hunka, to attend an address by Vladimir Zelensky. I don't remember what day this was, but it was late last week. And yeah, everybody stood up and applauded this man, including Justin Trudeau. And why would they invite him? Because he's a Canadian hero from his time fighting the Soviets in World War II. Are we really at a point where like certain nations' leaders don't realize that we were on the same side as the Soviets trying to take down Nazis? Like, is this a joke? This has to be a joke. It's not a joke.
No, it's not a joke. According to so on Friday. Oh, Yeah, so it was last Friday, September 22nd. The Canadian Parliament hosted an address by Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. During the event, Anthony Rota, the Speaker of the House of Commons, invited Yaroslav Hunka, a 98-year-old Ukrainian veteran, to attend the event and called him a hero in front of the Parliament. Well, Hunka was a member of the 14th Waffen-SS Grenadier Division, also known as the 1st Galatian Division, which was a voluntary unit. And that's the thing, too, is he volunteered. A voluntary unit made up of mostly ethnic Ukrainians under Nazi command during World War II. The division is accused of killing Polish and Jewish civilians, although it has not been found guilty of any war crimes by a tribunal. Rota's remarks prompted a standing ovation from the parliamentarians present, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. However, Rota later said that he did not know that Hunka's Nazi ties, and he made a mistake in inviting him to the event.
I mean, hold on. Okay, so he didn't know of Hunka's Nazi ties. Did he not even bother to look into like what division he fought for? Because it's a situation where it's like, you know, you hear a lot of like...
Dan, I'm going to just cut you off and say none of the leaders are looking up to who they're supporting over there in Ukraine.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to like throw some common sense on this, right? Because you often have like some like weird like quasi-Nazi sympathizers that are like, well, you know, not all the German soldiers were bad. Not all of them knew what they were doing over there. And it's like, yeah, but it's just like, so like, let's give this guy the benefit of the doubt. Let's give this 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka the benefit of the doubt. He was there to, you know, defend the cause or whatever. Didn't have a problem with Jews. Wasn't trying to kill Jews.
What cause, Dan?
Whatever cause. What cause do American soldiers fight for? Do they even know half the time anymore? I don't think they do. So like,
that's true.
So like, you look like, even if you give him the benefit of the doubt and you say, okay, like, you know, he wasn't an anti-Semite. He didn't want to kill Jews. He just was fighting for this cause, right? It's like, maybe just think about the optics for 1 second then and leave this 98-year-old man alone. You know what I mean? Like maybe just for all of those reasons, for like, we don't like Nazis reasons, and maybe this man really is innocent, but now he's in the spotlight at 98 years old. You know what I mean? Like maybe for all of those reasons, just don't do this thing. Am I an idiot? Am I crazy? Am I missing something here?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm an
feel
idiot,
like
but...
just quickly grasping at straws just to find someone to praise because they're Ukrainian to the point that it ends up being an actual Nazi.
Do you think that they just did such little research and they thought that this guy fought on the side of the Soviets before they invited him?
They wouldn't have invited him if he fought for the Soviets.
Right. Doesn't make sense, right? It's just so weird. It's so fucking weird.
That's funny.
It's not funny. As I laugh about it.
The Canadians love Nazis. Big deal.
Yeah.
So do we. We give them a bunch of money.
Yeah, we have Jon Stewart pinning medals on them at fucking Disney World.
Which Walt Disney would love.
So what are you, a Putin apologist, Corey? You're a Putin apologist.
Yeah.
It's like even if you think about it in context of
a Nazi would say that, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah, so would a straight white male. So
a Nazi.
Even like think about this even in the context of World War II, right? So hindsight being 2020 in history, we know this what I'm about to say to be true. Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin were almost equally evil. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Most historians would agree with that. We still like picked a side in that war and fought alongside one of those evil men.
Well, sorry, I'm drinking an El Chavo and it's a little spicy.
Well, what were we trying to defend the USSR's sovereignty, Corey, like we are today for the Ukrainians?
No. So if you remember World War II,
I don't remember it, Corey. I wasn't alive.
I was. No, I'm just kidding. But the only reason we fought with the Russians because it was just a tactical advantage. Because when the war started, Russia and Germany were on the same side. So like,
well, no,
if
that's
Hitler,
not true. That's not true.
yeah, that is.
No, Hitler gave Stalin a non-aggression pact. It wasn't. I wouldn't say they were fighting on the same side. And then he violated the non-aggression pact.
So yeah, they were basically like, "Hey, let us do our thing. You do your thing."
Because Hitler's worst nightmare was what actually took place in Berlin a couple days after he died, which is where he saw this hammer and sickle, where he would have seen if he were still alive, the hammer and sickle flying above Berlin.
That's true.
He fucking hated the Soviets.
But yeah, no, like, I think that was us just taking advantage of Hitler's blunder. We weren't necessarily on the side of the Russians, even though history shows that every time there is a huge catastrophe, the Russians and the Americans do seem to always end up on the same side.
So that's interesting what you just brought up. Because here's the thought I had based off of what you just said. So we decided to side with the Soviets in World War II because it was Hitler that was the aggressor, correct? It was Hitler that was the aggressor. It was Hitler that moved west first and then obviously made the mistake of moving east. So now we have a situation where if you listen to enough punditry without putting it in context of what happened before, because history didn't start until this war began, of course.
Putin's Hitler.
Putin is the aggressor. So now it's okay for us to defend the Nazis in Ukraine.
To where when the Nazis were the aggressor,
yeah,
we defended the commies.
We defended
and
the
now
commies
that the commies are the aggressor, we defend the Nazis.
It's asinine. I don't believe that to be true because I know that history didn't start in whatever it was, May of or February of 2022, whenever Putin invaded. But it's just like, it's so silly how we can rationalize these things so fast because we have such short memories.
Yeah. It's
such short memories. Anyway.
Accused of corruption. Disclaim your Cuban heritage.
Disclaim your Cuban heritage. Can we get Roger on the phone? Let's see how Roger feels about Menendez. Yeah, I'm gonna pull that up real quick. I don't have it in front of me. So where the fuck did it go?
So
yeah, you go ahead.
Bob Menendez and his wife were indicted on Friday, September 22nd, 2023 on corruption-related offenses for the second time in 10 years. They were accused of accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes from three New Jersey businessmen in exchange for the senator's influence. The bribes allegedly included gold, cash, home mortgage payments, compensation for a low or no-show job, and a Mercedes-Benz. The three businessmen are Whale Hanna, Jose Urib, and Fred Dibes. And I absolutely butchered those names.
I'm pretty sure you butchered all three of them.
He was previously indicted in 2017 on charges of conspiracy, bribery, and honest service fraud related to alleged personal favors for his longtime friend and donor, Solomon Melgen. He was accused of taking campaign donations and lavish trips from Melgen, a South Florida ophthalmologist. He denied
eye doctor. Just an eye doctor.
Eye doctor. He did not. Can't you see what's going on here, Dan?
I see what you did there.
He denied that the benefits from Melgen were bribes and that the said gifts came from a longtime personal friend. His trial ended in a mistrial after the jury voted 10-2 for acquittal. Prosecutors eventually chose not to retry the case. Melgen was separately convicted of Medicare fraud, but then was pardoned by Trump, which is actually really interesting.
It is interesting, isn't it?
He was also investigated in 2006 by the then U.S. Attorney Christie on suspicion of steering federal funds to a local nonprofit, but prosecutors closed the case without filing charges. The issues in question was if it was a conflict of interest for Menendez to collect over $300,000 in rent on a property he owned from a group that receives federal aid. Menendez said the House Ethics Committee told him at the time it was okay. Menendez has slammed the latest indictment as an attempt to silence his voice and dig his political grave. He has claimed he is being targeted by the justice system because of his Latino heritage.
Wow. Oh, God.
He is expected to address his Democratic Senate colleagues for the first time since he was indicted, which was actually yesterday. He was supposed to talk to them. I don't know what he said. But yeah, he just blamed it on being Cuban.
Dude, it's a place.
It's like Cuomo when they're like, "Hey man, you're really touchy-feely with these women," and he's like, "Hey, I'm Italian.
Hey, it's my heritage. I'm Italian. We touch asses.
Yeah, I touch butts and kiss everybody.
I like to touch your sister's ass. Yeah. So
what? I'm Italian."
Menendez.
So now Cubans.
What I
are
love
just-
about Menendez, the thing was how he responded to this, other than, saying that he's being targeted for his Cuban heritage, him saying these are baseless accusations and saying that prosecutors have misrepresented the normal work of the congressional office. Well, you got that right, buddy, because we all know you're all corrupt.
Yeah.
why I look
It's
at
not
this.
just you. You're just someone with the hand caught in the cookie jar.
That's why I look at this and I go, like, how much of
This
this
is what?
like,
But what? This is what we all do.
how much of this is like a John Gruden situation? For those who aren't football fans, John Gruden, famous head coach of the Oakland Raiders, then Las Vegas Raiders, and he was, but there were some emails that surfaced from John Gruden where he was saying some racist shit. I mean, and these are on like NFL servers, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm going, like, he obviously got thrown under the bus. He was canceled. He was fired. All of the things that, you would expect. And I was okay with it. Like, I'm like, probably shouldn't be saying racist shit in emails or at all. But my thought was like, this man
That's
had
such a
to,
high bar to set for people, Dan.
this man, but my whole point about it was like, this man had to have been scapegoated, right? Because if you have one NFL head coach that's like openly saying racist shit in like NFL circle emails
To where he feels like it's okay.
yeah, other people are doing it too. So it's like something got out that this was happening and they had to like pick a guy to be like, all right, let's just let's just
Dan, it's funny
sacrifice
you
one of
say
our
that
own.
because I have the same thoughts about Mel Tucker.
Oh, the Michigan State coach who was no, dude, that was unique.
No, I think that everyone's just jacking off on the phone. He just got scapegoated.
To jacking off on the phone with former sexual assault victims that you brought in to talk to your team about sexual assault.
Yeah, come on, who doesn't do that?
Yeah, everybody does that. It happens every day. But yeah, that's what I feel like is kind of happening with Menendez here. Not that he shouldn't go. He's obviously corrupt. I don't have any ties to Menendez. But like that was kind of my first thought was like, okay, he's been in trouble. And because you look at it and you go, okay, he's already been investigated now for the third time. He's been charged now for the second time, where they sit there and they go, oh, this is just like the perfect guy to scapegoat and be like, just a one-off thing. No problem. I'm Italian. Your sister's ass. So yeah, that's what I feel like might be going on here.
Well, it goes back to one of my favorite quotes, Dan.
Either that, he was just that sloppy.
Yeah, it goes back to one of my favorite quotes from Hunter S. Thompson. And I've said it on our show now a few dozen times at least, but it's in a closed society where everybody's guilty, the only crime is getting caught. In a world of thieves, the only final sin is stupidity. He's just dumber than the rest of them.
Yeah.
I don't think he's any more corrupt than any of the rest of them. He just got caught.
And it seems like his new wife that he just married in what, like 2018 or 19 is a real anchor. I mean, she's just he's dragging her around like an anchor. So, I have a piece here from Politico that's pretty short that I'll go over here. You didn't read the Politico piece just now, did you? I wasn't paying attention the whole time.
No.
So this was put out by John Gerstein, or Josh Gerstein. I don't know. So I got to get to the right spot.
By the way, the game did start at 8:15, I guess.
That's what I thought. Yeah, Lions are on tonight. For years, forces behind the scenes have repeatedly attempted to silence my voice and dig my political grave, said Menendez in a statement. Since this investigation was leaked nearly a year ago, there has been an active smear campaign of anonymous sources and innuendos to create an air of impropriety where none exists. There's no way he wrote that. Like somebody wrote that for him. David Schertler, a lawyer for Menendez's wife, Nadine Menendez, the anchor that I was talking about, said, Mrs. Menendez denies any criminal conduct and will vigorously contest these charges in court because she apparently is the, what are the three names again, Corey? She's like buddies with one of them.
Melgen was the one that he said he's longtime friends with, but then there was Whale Hannah, Jose Uribe, and Uribe
was Nadine's friend. So Menendez and co-defendants will make an initial court appearance Wednesday, which was today, and they pled not guilty, as you would imagine. It's the second time Menendez was indicted. Menendez went to trial in 2017, resulting in a hung jury. Though prosecutors briefly intended to retry the case, they soon gave up. The latest indictment of the prominent Democrat, like I paint him as a prominent Democrat, gives the DOJ a chance to appear politically even-handed as it faces withering criticism from former President Donald Trump and his allies over the 2 federal criminal indictments that Trump is under. That was kind of the point that I was getting at. The 39-page indictment alleges explosive conduct by Menendez, who holds the powerful chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which is important because one of these charges is about the Hana guy from Egypt essentially getting a monopoly on halal meat exports, I believe is what it was, to Egypt. So, when the higher you get up in a committee, the easier you are, or the more money you're going to need to charge for your bribes.
Yeah, he helped influence and so that, like, it's so funny too, right? Because what did I just mention earlier in the show? I was talking about how Obama and Clinton were stifling any sort of free market, like, economy in Haiti when it came to Levi, and here he is trying to do the same thing with halal meats.
There's always money. There's always money behind it somewhere. Like, there's always, that's the thing, is like, he's just the guy that got caught, is what I think. I think you think the same thing as well. All the alleged schemes occurred after Menendez began dating his now wife in early 2018. That's what I mean. That's why I said, like, this woman sounds like a complete anchor. Like, he probably had a good thing going. He was just taking a few small bribes on the side. No problem. Forget about it. I don't know. Why am I talking about him like he's Italian?
He's not Italian. He's Cuban.
Yeah, I got Cuomo.
Hey, I dare you to do a Cuban accent.
No, I'll pass on that. It's not that I don't. It's not that I won't do it because I think it'll be offensive to people. It's just like it's something that I would have to work on. I don't want to embarrass myself right away, but I'll work on it maybe for next week. But the two married in October of 2020. In the first scheme, according to prosecutors, the senator, quote, provided sensitive U.S. government information and took other steps that secretly aided the government of Egypt, as well as pressured an official at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, to benefit the business of Wael Hana, one of the 3 business people's defendants. Hana, who is originally from Egypt, is a longtime friend of Nadine Menendez and had close connections with Egyptian officials, according to the indictment. Shortly after Nadine Menendez began dating the senator, she and Hana introduced Egyptian military and intelligence officers to the senator for the purpose of establishing and solidifying a corrupt agreement, in which Hana, assisted by the 2 other indicted business people, Fred Daibes, and I can't pronounce that name, but I do know Jose Uribe, provided hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes to the couple, according to the indictment. In exchange for the bribes, the indictment says the senator took acts to benefit Hana and the Egyptian government, quote, including with respect to foreign military sales and foreign military financing, end quote, matters over which Menendez had significant influence as the chairman and, prior to that, the ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So now we're talking about being able to sell weapons to effectively the Egyptian military. Among other things, the indictment alleges at a dinner on May of 2018, Menendez gave Hana non-public information about the U.S.'s provision of military aid to Egypt after Hana texted an Egyptian official saying, quote, the ban on small arms and ammunitions to Egypt has been lifted. That means sales can begin. That will include sniper rifles, among others, end quote. So this is just like, this is the military industrial complex, the kind of the front end, like pawn version of it, where, you don't quite have Raytheon and General Dynamic involved in these indictments, but like, you can tell that's what this is. This is the government. This is a government official taking bribes to allow the United States, aka Raytheon, Boeing, whomever, to now sell weapons to militaries that they could not have otherwise sold them to before. Good way to sum it up.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, it's basically he's crooked as shit.
and promoting war, as you would imagine that any good establishment Democrat would do. Yeah, there's more to this article, but like that's the main stuff right there. I mean, those are the two big things.
Yeah, it cracked me up that like it just the identity politics and things that we're always bitching about on our show, and like how it's just literally just poison to any sort of progressivism in our country.
That's the issue with constantly fighting culture wars. Like, I don't think it's going to work in Menendez's case, but it's like this idea that people can like do these things, or at least allegedly, right? Obviously, he deserves his day in court. We'll give it to him. This is the United States. Like, we'll give him a chance to defend himself. But like, let's be honest, right? It doesn't look good. It's like it's the third time now he's been investigated, and the second time now he's been charged. But again, he does deserve his day in court. But like, this is the issue when we fight so harshly over these culture wars, is that now Menendez has the ability to just go, yeah, I'm being targeted for my race. Like that's all anybody has to say. Like, as long as they don't look like you or me, like you can just be like, oh yeah, I'm being targeted for my race. And if things keep going this way, and like more conservative people start to like come back in the culture war sphere, Corey, you and I might be able to do that. We might be able to be like, yeah, we're being targeted because we're straight white males. Like, who knows? In 5 years, that might actually be a legitimate defense.
Anytime,
it's all stupid. It's dumb.
Anytime someone cuts in front of me because they didn't know better, they didn't see me in line at a grocery store,
you just call them the N-word and walk away.
Anytime that someone doesn't let me in when a lane is ending and stuff in my car, I automatically assume it's because I'm a straight white male. So,
I thought you were going to say something so much more racist than that. Like, I automatically assume they're an Asian
No,
woman.
Dan, I'm the victim here.
That's right. I thought you were going with that.
No, I'm the oppressed. I'm not the oppressor.
Ah, very good. Yeah. Yeah. So if you get fired from your job,
I blame my on-the-job site alcoholism on my Irish heritage.
They're targeting me for my Irish heritage. I just like to drink. It's part of my culture.
It's just to fight off the shakes. What?
That's too funny.
Dude, that was the thing that was the biggest part that stuck out to me. It was like, really you're gonna now like one of the most most disparaged people in the entire world, right? Is Cuban people under a communist dictatorship in Cuba, as evidenced by these guys are literally just gonna hop on doors they get from their house to float across the ocean to get here.
Right, but a lot of that's our fault.
100%.
Another thing nobody wants to talk about.
Not my fault personally.
I just mean the United States.
So I got too drunk, and then
Isn't it weird though that like Cuba?
But
is
what
like,
I'm saying
is
is
this kind of like weird, like left-wing sort of quasi-communist country that like would probably be doing fine if we would just leave them alone and lift sanctions
on a macro scale.
Yeah, but like, isn't it like
step out of line and you're fucked? But
like the fact that they're like surviving without cars, like they're just refurbishing like cars from like the 1940s and 50s, and they're like sort of doing okay, and they actually have a really good medical system. A lot of people don't know this. Like they created doctors in Cuba.
They created a vaccine for COVID that was like, wasn't it damn near as effective as like Pfizer and BioNTech. Cuba's literacy rate is higher than I think America's.
Oh, I'm sure it is. So is it safe to say that like Cuba maybe is like, because like everybody always says like communism always fails and never works, and for the most part I agree with that, right? Like we've seen the history books, we know what happens when socialists and
Cuba is somehow just surviving.
Is it like the exception? Like
they're not thriving.
No, they're not thriving. They're not thriving,
but they're surviving.
And imagine what could happen to them if we lift the sanctions. Imagine if I could just go to my local tobacconist and buy Cuban cigars for a reasonable price.
Right.
I would support it. I would support
Cuba. Go and visit Cuba as a country.
You can do that now.
Again, you can? Or do you have to go through Canada?
I believe we can go there now. I could be wrong. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong.
Because I remember when they first started doing that, like I remember thinking like, my God, I could literally, if Cuba became a capitalist society, if Cuba was such a capitalist society,
can we travel to Cuba from the United States now?
if Cuba became like a capitalist society, we can go make money. Like, there's so much money on the table for me to just literally pack up all of my woodworking tools
Prohibited.
and fly down to
Okay.
Cuba.
So you were right. You were right, Corey.
Yeah, like Obama made it allowable, and then Trump made it illegal,
Hold on.
and then Biden just
out.
pretended to not be Trump, continues to
Bill
follow
said
Trump
time out.
policy.
Time out.
You can't travel for tourism, but I'm pretty sure you could travel for business.
That's odd because
Yeah.
there are so many embargoes in Cuba. Like, who's doing business?
Well,
there?
yeah, it's like, yeah, go ahead, try with it for business. Good luck.
Yeah, but they can restrict travel. It's restricted only for tourism.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say that I'm going for business. Like, I'm a tobacconist, man. I want to grow my own tobacco. I'm gonna go there and see what the Cubans do.
Yeah.
13 official reasons why you can travel there, but
So, in other words, there are kind of
Look it
ways
up.
around it. You could fake
Yeah.
it if you really wanted to.
Just fake it till you
But
make
the
it.
flight's probably so fucking expensive, right? Because there's probably like 12 people a day that are trying to fly to Cuba. I don't
You
know.
just go through Canada.
$370.
That's it, dude. I'm
Yeah.
going. What is that? One way?
Yep, one way, one stop.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I'm going. You guys want to go to Cuba?
So
Yeah,
We're
we
going
can
for
fly
business.
one way there, and then
Hey.
for the Gonzo experience, we can just float back on a door.
We're going for business. We're going to interview Cubans. It's business.
you're allowed to go for journalism.
Sweet. We're going.
No, we need to make those press passes, huh?
You're
That's
allowed
our
to go
goal.
for public performance, workshops, to support the Cuban people.
But anyways, yeah,
That's
so
basically, but that's tourism because doesn't tourism support the Cuban people? Like, what a stupid arbitrary
but not in a
rule.
sanctioned way, Dan.
Oh my god!
You
what a
need to
stupid
go there
rule.
basically to say fuck communism.
Oh my god! What a
Opposite.
stupid-
You go there and you're like, guys, you're doing great.
This is capitalism. Hey, you got a great product.
Go you.
But yeah, so like basically, like you were saying, I don't think like Menendez, like, and this is the thing too, right? Like when everyone's corrupt and the spotlight is getting a little bit too close to burn everyone, there's gonna be the poster child to go, look, yeah, we don't like corruption. Look what we're doing to Menendez.
doing something.
Yeah, even though they're all just as fucking corrupt as he is. He's just the dumb one.
Or
His only sin is stupidity in the house because
not
all of the other
dumb,
ones are fucking stupid.
if not dumb, the brazen one, right? Because like there's always that story. Like you guys have seen the movie Goodfellas, right? One of my favorite fucking films. Like there's always that point where you get a little too big for your britches and think you're too big and can get away with anything.
You get Joe Pesci.
And you get, well, there's that, but there's also just like the complete takedown of the mob, or at least as we know it and romanticize it, right?
Goodfellas is such a good movie. You want to hear something
film.
really funny on my
Great
dumbass
film.
part? So I bought Goodfellas because I caught, like, you know how it's like a 3-hour movie?
Yeah. Oh, you watched the second tape first. I think you told me this, right? Did I ruin the joke?
Yeah.
I ruined the joke.
Yeah, so like, yeah, like I saw like the last 45 minutes of it, and I was like, this is a good fucking movie. And so I bought it on DVD. Well, it's such a long movie that it's a 2 DVD movie,
You watched the second one first.
but it came as a single disc, and you just flip the disc.
Oh, I remember those. I remember those.
And
Yeah,
I
you had the
played
two-sided
part
DVD.
B.
Yeah.
And I started the movie on part B for like a year and a half, in which it started off on fucking what's his face, Ray Liotta's character's wife buzzing at his girlfriend's door, saying,
Oh
you know,
my
like,
God, you missed so much.
yeah, for a long time.
Dude, but how did you not like think like why are there no opening credits?
I was
or
like, oh, it's
anything?
Martin Scorsese. It's a weird movie. Like, Martin Scorsese, you crazy son bitch.
Dude, how he didn't win an Oscar for that film makes no sense to me. Pesci was the
I guess,
only one who
I
won
guess
an
what
Oscar
you have to
for
do
that
is
film.
what other movies came out at that time.
It doesn't matter, dude, because
No,
that's
it really does. It does.
but
because
here's why it doesn't matter, because Scorsese was fucked over a multitude of times. a multitude of times.
Right, but a lot does it have to do with it also what was released? Because look at Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank Redemption is
Was panned in the theaters. Yeah, panned in the theaters.
One of the best fucking movies ever made, but it came out the same year Titanic did. And that movie is a million times better than Titanic. But
I would argue that's not necessarily true.
what?
To people like I think it is. Like to people like you and me, that's true. But like Titanic is a pretty goddamn good movie, and like Shawshank Redemption is a movie that's for I would say a more male demographic and a more like high-minded thinker demographic, as to where Titanic is this James Cameron film with this big production. Like I can see why that was a huge movie.
Oh yeah, Shawshank Redemption, a forceful romance in prison with guys.
No, that's not it. But like, no, I'm with you. Like Shawshank Redemption is one of my favorite films of all time.
Shawshank Redemption, The Notebook, but in prison.
But you can see how the public would see Titanic as the better film, right? Like people that aren't weirdos like you and me, who like thinker movies. Like, because not everybody likes thinker movies. Some people like movies where they just go and they watch. They don't have to think a whole lot. It's entertaining, right?
And watch people die on doors. Yeah, great. I'd rather watch.
Do you actually think Titanic was a bad film?
No, I'm not.
I was gonna say watch it again because it actually is pretty good.
But yeah, but like just I don't know.
Is it better than Shawshank Redemption? In my opinion,
No.
absolutely not. I'm with you on that. I don't want you to like call me a gay slur from 2003 or something like that.
A foot fairy.
That's just a euphemism for soccer players. I love soccer. Everybody chill out.
I just is it?
Yes.
I always just thought it was just gay people like foot jobs. Am I wrong?
You are wrong. You are absolutely wrong.
Good God.
Even Bell is just like scratching.
Wait, that's for soccer?
Yeah. Foot fairies are what like Americans call soccer players.
Gay guys who like foot jobs.
You thought it was foot.
I've been using this saying wrong this whole time.
Your whole life.
Oh my God.
No,
this is like
I'm kidding, Bell.
No, you're not kidding.
Oh my God.
You need to learn. You need to like go on TikTok and be like
and look up foot fairy.
I was today years old when I learned.
that would be a funny bit on TikTok, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Nikki Haley wouldn't like it. She'd clutch her
shit,
pearl.
Lions scored.
Yeah, I saw that.
I saw the interception they got through. They got Green Bay the field goal.
This is not a sports podcast.
I know it's not. I'm sorry.
If it was, you guys would be in trouble. Do we have anything else? What did we miss? Oh, I know what we missed. We missed that thing.
Yeah, that thing from that time.
UAW. The two top candidates were in Detroit just over this past week. Essentially, they almost crossed paths. They almost had a fight.
Ex-Prez and incoherent Prez visit the Dirty Mitten.
Here's the thing. The reason I want to save this for last is because I don't care that much, even though like it's a local story and like we live in the Detroit area and it should matter, and it just doesn't.
It doesn't at all.
All of this it's just all political grandstanding. Like I was refreshing the Occupy Democrats page to try and see what they were going to say about Joe Biden coming to be the first acting president to picket with strikers. And it's like, dude, the only reason you're doing that is because, first of all, you lied and said you were the most pro-union president of all time. But second of all, the UAW for the longest time did not back you.
The fight's going to happen at 24 and Van Dyke.
Oh, between Trump and Biden?
Dude, one of my favorite things to do is write, like, when it comes to like graffiti. Like, I'm not a huge graffiti artist, but I love writing on stuff. If I have a Sharpie, Trump and Biden touch tips.
They do. They might even dock. Do you think one of them is uncircumcised? Like, do they engage in docking? Like,
Dan, I obviously know nothing about the gay community because of my foot fairy remark.
You know what docking is, right?
For the sake of the audience, I'm going to say no.
This is why this is not a family podcast. You have one dick that's circumcised. You have another dick that's uncircumcised. And then you push them together and you pull the uncircumcised foreskin over the foreskin of the circumcised penis. Like, that's the technical way to describe
Do you make like noises like they would for a space station? Like, here comes the rocket ship.
Like, when I found
You
out
know,
what
like you do
docking
for a
was,
kid when you
what?
feed them. Here comes the rocket ship.
Yeah. Here comes the aeroplane.
Dan, we can end this podcast now because I'm so happy I just got you explain docking to me.
What docking is, but can I also explain like how I went
Prodding?
deeper into thinking about docking? Because my first thought when I found out what it was like, what do you do if one penis is significantly larger than the other? Like, if the uncirced penis is going up against the circed penis is going up against the uncirced penis, and you have to stretch this tiny foreskin over the top of the larger one. Like, that could be painful, right?
Yeah, I guess.
I'm not cutting any of this out. This is all staying in the final cut.
I can't believe you said cutting when you're talking about circumcision.
That's why this isn't a family podcast.
Why are we doing this?
I don't know. This is a new low mark for our show, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
That's my sounds that I would make if I were docking someone.
So you have given this some thought.
Now. I love how we talked about how both presidents were coming, and then the premise of it was we don't give a shit, and it just evolved into docking.
That's
we
how
really
much
don't
it
give
doesn't
a shit.
matter. That's how much it doesn't matter. They're just both. It's political grandstanding. Sean Fain came out, the president of the UAW, and talked shit about Trump's
Political docking.
Political docking. Yes, that should be the title of the episode. And nobody will figure out what the hell it means until they get to the very end.
Google it.
What is docking?
Yeah. You might want to
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. Then we can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Email us today to discuss your docking experiences, and then make sure to subscribe to the podcast.
And remember, if you're going to dock and you are the you are the circed one, make sure that you're fitting at an appropriate level.
Yeah, you don't want to stick nothing. You don't want to stick a square peg
If
into
you're
a
an
round
8
hole.
gauge, find an 8 gauge.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you have to discriminate based on size, just like women.
Oh.
I've had one too many whiskeys tonight. Anyway, Bell the Bodysnatcher on the ones and twos. He, as always, is Corey Walsh.
And he's Dan Griffin.
This has been
And the
Libservative,
Docker.
and this may be our final episode, but we are out of here.
Peace.